The USS Defiance floated in the dark void of space, like a dead whale. For 3 months, the massive human warship had drifted through the Theta sector without moving. No lights blinked on its hull. No signals came from its communication arrays. The ship looked completely destroyed. From the outside, anyone could see the terrible damage. Huge holes were torn in the metal sides. Twisted pieces of armor hung loose like broken teeth. Scorch marks covered the hull where alien weapons had burned through. The main engines were dark and cold. Even the navigation lights were dead. Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship and studied the human wreck through the main viewer. His 6 warships moved slowly toward the dead vessel. The alien commander's 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he watched his prey grow larger on the screen. "Scanning shows no life signs," reported his tactical officer. "No power readings. The ship appears to have been dead for months." Sektar nodded his large head. The hegemony had been hunting human ships for over a year now. After their surprise attack on Earth's colonies, most human vessels had been destroyed or captured. This one looked like another easy prize. "Move us closer," Sektar ordered. "I want to see what secrets these humans were carrying." Deep inside the USS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison lay in a hibernation pod in the ship's armored core. Around him, 11 other pods held the last surviving members of his crew. The pods kept them alive while using almost no power to any scanner. They would look like part of the ship's machinery in the engineering section. Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks worked alone in the dark. She had been awake for weeks, carefully maintaining the ship's most basic systems. Her hands moved expertly over control panels lit only by tiny emergency lights. Every few hours, she would check on the sleeping crew and make small adjustments to keep them alive. Brooks wiped sweat from her forehead. The ship's core temperature was kept just above freezing to hide their heat signature. Her breath came out in small clouds as she worked. But she did not complain. This plan was their only hope. 3 months ago, the Defiance had been caught in an ambush. The hegemony ships had outnumbered them 6-1. Morrison had made a desperate choice. Instead of fighting a hopeless battle, he ordered the ship to fake its own destruction. They had used explosives to damage their own hull. They had shut down all power systems. They had even released some of their air to make it look like the ship was breached. The trick had worked. The aliens had scanned the wreck and moved on, thinking all humans aboard were dead. But Morrison and his crew had been very much alive, hiding in the ship's most protected areas and waiting for their chance. Brooks checked her watch. The alien ships were getting closer. Soon, it would be time to wake the others. She made her way through the dark corridors to the bridge, where Weapons Officer Tony Garcia was already stirring in his pod. "How long was I out?" Garcia whispered, as Brooks helped him from the hibernation chamber. 6 hours, she replied quietly. "The aliens are almost here. Time to get ready." Garcia nodded and began powering up the weapon systems. Everything had to be done very carefully. Too much power too quickly would show up on alien scanners. But they needed to be ready to fight when Morrison gave the signal. Outside, Commander Zektar's ships moved into a circle around the human wreck. The alien commander was pleased with what he saw. The Defiance had been one of Earth's newest warships. Its technology would be very valuable to the hegemony. "Prepare boarding teams," Zektar ordered. "I want that ship searched from top to bottom. Look for weapons data, star charts, anything that might tell us where other humans are hiding." His officers moved to carry out the orders. Shuttle bays opened on 3 of the alien ships. Armed soldiers prepared to board the human vessel and strip it of its secrets. On the Defiance, Morrison's hibernation pod began its wake-up cycle. Slowly, the captain's eyes opened. His body felt stiff and cold, but his mind was sharp. Brooks appeared beside his pod with a cup of hot coffee. "Status report," Morrison said quietly as he sat up. 6 enemy ships, sir. They're preparing to board us. All systems are ready on your command. Morrison smiled grimly. For 3 months, they had played dead. For 3 months, they had waited in the cold and dark. The aliens thought they were looking at a helpless wreck. Soon, they would learn how wrong they were. Wake the others, Morrison ordered. It's time to show these aliens that humans don't die easily. Brooks moved quickly to wake the rest of the crew. One by one, the hibernation pods opened. Communications Officer Danny Price, Navigation Officer Kelly Adams, and the others began preparing for battle. They moved like ghosts through the dark ship, taking their positions. The alien boarding shuttles launched toward the Defiance. Commander Zector watched with satisfaction as his soldiers prepared to claim their prize. He had no idea that inside the dead-looking ship, 12 very angry humans were preparing to spring the perfect trap. Morrison took his place in the captain's chair. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Everything was ready. The aliens were coming closer, completely unaware of the danger they were flying into. "Sir," whispered Garcia from the weapons station, "targeting systems are locked and loaded." "Very good," Morrison replied. "Remember, we only get one chance at this. When I give the word, we hit them with everything we have." The first alien shuttle was now only minutes away from docking with the Defiance. Commander Zector leaned forward, in his command chair, eager to see what treasures his soldiers would find aboard the human ship. He was about to get a very unpleasant surprise. The alien boarding shuttle moved closer to the USS Defiance. Inside the small craft, 12 hegemony soldiers checked their weapons and equipment. They expected to find nothing but dead humans in empty corridors. This was supposed to be an easy mission. Commander Zector watched from his flagship as more shuttles launched toward the human wreck. His ships had formed a tight circle around the Defiance. The closest vessel was less than 2 kilometers away. Perfect range for detailed scans and quick boarding operations. "Begin docking procedures," the shuttle pilot reported. "The human ship shows no response to our approach." Zector smiled. Of course there was no response. The ship had been dead for months. Soon, his soldiers would be walking through its corridors, taking whatever they wanted. The humans had built good ships, but they were all dead now, inside the Defiance. Captain Morrison sat perfectly still in his command chair. His crew was ready at their stations, but everything remained dark and quiet. They had practiced this moment many times during the long months of waiting. "Alien shuttle is 30 seconds from docking," whispered Navigation Officer Kelly Adams. Morrison nodded. "Chief Brooks, are you ready with the power surge?" In engineering, Lisa Brooks had her hand on the main power switch. 4 months, she had been storing energy in the ship's backup batteries. Every spare bit of power had been saved for this moment. When she threw that switch, the Defiance would come alive like an angry beast. "Ready, sir?" Brooks replied through the comm system. Weapons Officer Tony Garcia watched his targeting screen. The 6 alien ships were so close, he could hit them with his eyes closed. They had no idea what was about to happen. He had spent weeks preparing special surprises for them. The alien shuttle touched the Defiance's hull with a soft bump. Magnetic clamps locked the 2 ships together. The soldiers inside prepared to cut through the human ship's outer door. "Docking complete," the pilot reported to Commander Zector, "beginning hull breach in 30 seconds. This was the moment Morrison had been waiting for. The aliens were committed now. They could not escape quickly even if they wanted to. He took a deep breath and spoke the words his crew had been longing to hear. "Phoenix Protocol. Execute now." Chief Brooks slammed her hand down on the power switch. Throughout the Defiance, systems that had been sleeping for months suddenly roared to life. Lights blazed on across the ship. The main engines began their startup sequence. Weapon systems powered up with an angry hum. On the bridge, Communications Officer Danny Price activated the ship's main transmitter. The message he sent would be heard by every ship in the area. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance." Price broadcast on all frequencies. "You made 2 mistakes today. First, you assumed we were dead. Second, you got close enough for us to prove you wrong." Commander Zektar's 4 eyes went wide with shock. The human ship was alive. How was that possible? His sensors had shown no life signs for months. The ship had looked completely destroyed. "All ships, emergency retreat," Zektar shouted. "The humans are still alive." But it was too late. The alien ships were too close to each other and moving too slowly. Morrison had planned this perfectly. The enemy was trapped in their own formation. "Fire," Morrison commanded. The USS Defiance unleashed 3 months of stored fury. Every weapon system that Garcia and Brooks had managed to repair opened fire at once. Railguns that had seemed destroyed blazed with deadly light. Missile tubes that appeared empty launched their hidden payloads. Even the ship's point defense guns joined the attack. The nearest alien ship never had a chance to raise its shields. Garcia's first salvo tore through its hull like paper. The vessel exploded in a ball of white fire, sending debris flying in all directions. The second target tried to turn away, but Kelly Adams had anticipated its movement. She fired the ship's maneuvering thrusters, spinning the Defiance to keep all weapons pointed at the fleeing aliens. More missiles streaked across space, slamming into the enemy ship's engines. "Direct hit," Garcia reported with satisfaction. "Target 2 is crippled and drifting." Commander Zektar's flagship was trying to back away from the suddenly dangerous human ship, but the Defiance was faster than it looked. Morrison had kept the main engines in perfect condition during their long wait. "Bring us about," Morrison ordered. "Let's show them what human engineering can really do." The USS Defiance turned with surprising grace for such a large ship. Its weapons tracked the retreating aliens like the eyes of a hunting wolf. The ship, that had seemed dead minutes ago, was now the most dangerous thing in space. The alien shuttle that had been trying to board the Defiance was still attached to its hull. The soldiers inside were screaming in panic as their mothership exploded nearby. They tried to detach from the human vessel, but it was too late. "Security Chief Carter, deal with our unwanted guests," Morrison said calmly. Steve Carter smiled as he moved toward the airlock where the aliens were trapped. He had been looking forward to this moment for a very long time. The aliens had thought they were boarding a dead ship. Now they would learn what happened to uninvited visitors. On his flagship, Commander Zektar watched in horror as his carefully planned operation fell apart. 3 of his ships were already destroyed or heavily damaged. The human vessel was not only alive, but fighting with incredible skill and fury. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our sensors showed no life signs." His tactical officer was working frantically at his station. "Sir, they must have been using some kind of hibernation system. They've been hiding inside their own ship for months." Sektar realized the terrible truth. The humans had not been defeated. They had been planning. For 3 months, they had waited in the cold and dark, preparing for exactly this moment. The alien commander felt fear creep into his heart as he understood how badly he had been fooled. "All remaining ships, attack formation," he ordered desperately. "Concentrate fire on that human ship." But the Defiance was already moving again. Morrison and his crew had spent months studying their enemy's tactics. They knew exactly what the aliens would try to do next. "Evasive maneuvers," Morrison commanded. "Take us through the asteroid field. Let's see if they can follow us there." The battle was far from over, but the humans had drawn first blood. The ship that the aliens thought was dead had just proven how very much alive it really was. The USS Defiance spun through space like a deadly dancer. Captain Morrison watched the main screen as his ship tore into the alien formation. The surprise attack had worked perfectly, but now came the hard part. 3 enemy ships were down, but 3 more were still fighting. Target the command ship, Morrison ordered. Hit them with everything we have. Weapons Officer Tony Garcia smiled as he locked onto Commander Zektar's flagship. For months, he had been dreaming of this moment. The aliens had thought all humans were dead. Now they would pay for that mistake. The Defiance's main guns fired in perfect sequence. Bright streams of energy crossed the space between the ships. The alien flagship's shields flared and sparked as the human weapons hammered against them. Their shields are down to 60%, Garcia reported. Another hit like that and we'll punch right through. But Commander Zektar was not giving up easily. His remaining ships were finally responding to his orders. They spread out and began firing back at the human vessel. Red and green beams of alien energy struck the Defiance's hull. Shields holding, called out Tactical Officer Ryan Cooper from his station. But we're taking damage to the portside armor. Morrison nodded. He had expected this. The aliens had more ships and more firepower. But they had one big problem. They were not used to fighting humans who fought back with such fury. Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks was working frantically in the engine room. The massive power surge needed for their surprise attack had pushed the ship's systems beyond their normal limits. Warning lights blinked red across her control panels. "Captain, we have problems down here," Brooks reported over the comm. "The main power core is running hot. I can give you maybe 20 more minutes of full power before we start losing systems." 20 minutes. Morrison felt his jaw tighten. That was not much time to finish off 3 enemy warships. But his crew had not survived 3 months in hiding just to give up now. "Understood, Chief. Make those 20 minutes count." The battle was turning into a deadly game of cat and mouse. The Defiance was faster and hit harder, but the aliens had more ships. They were trying to surround the human vessel and attack from all sides. Navigation Officer Kelly Adams was working her magic at the helm. She spun the ship through a series of impossible turns, using every trick she had learned during her years as a pilot. The Defiance moved like it was half its actual size. "Coming about to bearing 270, Adams reported. "I'm bringing us in behind that cruiser." The alien ship never saw the attack coming. Garcia's missiles struck its engines just as it was turning to face them. The explosion tore through the ship's rear section, sending it spinning out of control. "That's 4 down," Garcia said with satisfaction. 2 to go. But the remaining aliens were learning from their mistakes. They stopped trying to fight the Defiance up close and began keeping their distance. Long-range weapons fire began hitting the human ship from multiple directions. "We're taking hits on all sides," Cooper reported. "Shield strength down to 40%. Morrison studied the tactical display. The aliens were being smart now. They were staying far enough away to avoid the Defiance's most powerful weapons, while pounding the human ship with their own guns. "We need to get close to one of them," Morrison said. "Adams, can you get us alongside that heavy cruiser?" "It won't be easy, sir. They're watching for that trick now. Then we'll have to make our own luck." Morrison activated the ship's intercom system. He wanted his whole crew to hear what he was about to say. "All hands, this is the captain. We've been playing dead for 3 months, waiting for this chance. Now we're in the fight of our lives. These aliens think they can wipe out humanity. Let's show them how wrong they are." Throughout the ship, the crew responded with grim determination. Dr. Amy Foster was treating wounded crew members in sickbay, while also helping to repair damaged systems. Security Chief Steve Carter had dealt with the alien boarding party and was now helping with damage control. The Defiance suddenly accelerated straight toward the alien heavy cruiser. The enemy commander saw the human ship coming and began backing away while firing everything he had. "Shields down to 20%, Cooper warned. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 8. "Stay on course," Morrison ordered. "Garcia, As soon as we're in range, hit them with the railguns. The distance between the ships closed rapidly. The alien cruiser was backing away as fast as it could, but the Defiance was faster. When they reached optimal range, Garcia unleashed the ship's most powerful weapons. The railguns fired solid metal slugs at incredible speed. At close range, they could punch through almost any armor. The alien ship's shields collapsed under the hammering, and the metal projectiles tore through its hull like bullets through paper. Critical hit, Garcia shouted. Their power core is going critical. The alien cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave rocked the Defiance, but the human ship held together. 5 down, 1 to go, Morrison said quietly. But their victory had come at a cost. The ship's systems were failing rapidly. Brooks reported that the main power core was dangerously overheated. Several weapon systems had stopped working. The shields were barely functioning. Commander Zektar's flagship was the only alien ship left. The Hegemony commander was desperate now. His entire squadron had been destroyed by a single human vessel that was supposed to be dead. He could not let this ship escape to tell other humans about his failure. All power to weapons, Zektar ordered. Destroy that human ship at any cost. The alien flagship began a final attack run. Its remaining weapons fired continuously at the damaged Defiance. The human ship shuddered under the assault. Shields are gone, Cooper reported. We're taking direct hits to the hull. Engineering to bridge, Brooks called over the comm. Power. Core containment is failing. We've got maybe 5 minutes before total system shutdown. Morrison looked at his crew. They had come so far and fought so hard, but their ship was dying around them. The aliens had 1 vessel left, and it was trying to finish them off. Options? Morrison asked. Garcia checked his weapons status. We've got 1 full missile spread left, and the main railgun is still working. But at this range, they'll see it coming. Adams studied her navigation display. Sir, there's an asteroid field nearby, if we can get them to follow us in there. Morrison smiled grimly. His crew never gave up. That was what made humans dangerous. Even when everything seemed hopeless, they kept fighting and looking for a way to win. Do it, Morrison ordered. Take us into the asteroids. Let's finish this fight, the human way. The USS Defiance limped toward the asteroid field with its hull smoking and systems failing. Behind it, Commander Zektar's flagship followed like a hungry predator. The alien commander knew the human ship was badly damaged. He just needed to stay close and keep firing until it died. They're gaining on us, Navigation Officer Kelly Adams reported. Her hands flew over the controls as she tried to squeeze more speed from the dying engines. Enemy ship will be in optimal firing range in 2 minutes. Captain Morrison studied the tactical display. The asteroid field was close, but not close enough. They needed something to slow down their pursuer. Garcia, what do we have left to shoot at them? Weapons Officer Tony Garcia checked his systems. Most of the ship's weapons were damaged or out of ammunition. 1 missile spread, sir, and we've still got the mining charges from our last supply run. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Mining charges? Yes, sir. We picked up a full load 3 months ago, just before the ambush. They're designed to break up asteroids, but they pack a good punch. Can you fire them like missiles? Garcia grinned. Not exactly like missiles, sir, but I can rig them to detonate on impact. They won't be very accurate, but if they hit, do it, Morrison ordered. Buy us some time to reach those asteroids. Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks was fighting a losing battle in the engine room. The power core was overheating badly, and coolant was leaking from damaged lines. She had already shut down non-essential systems, but the ship needed more power than she could safely provide. Captain, I'm reading critical temperatures in the reactor chamber, Brooks reported. If this keeps up, we're going to have a containment breach. How long? Morrison asked. Maybe 10 minutes, if we keep pushing the engines this hard. 10 minutes. Morrison did the math in his head. At their current speed, they would reach the asteroid field in about 8 minutes. That gave them 2 minutes to lose their pursuer among the rocks. It would have to be enough. Garcia finished his improvised weapon system and began firing the mining charges at the alien ship. The charges were not designed for space combat, so they flew in slow, wobbling paths. Most of them missed their target completely. But one charge struck the alien flagship's forward section and exploded with tremendous force. The blast tore a huge hole in the ship's armor and sent it spinning off course. "Direct hit," Garcia shouted. "They're slowing down to stabilize their ship." Commander Zektar cursed as his vessel shook from the human weapon's impact. What kind of mad species used mining equipment as weapons? These humans seemed to turn everything into a tool for fighting. "Damage report," he demanded. "Forward armor is breached, and we've lost 2 weapon systems," his tactical officer replied. "But the ship is still combat capable. Then keep firing. Do not let that human ship escape." The chase continued as both vessels approached the asteroid field. The Defiance was still ahead, but barely. Zektar's ship was firing continuously, scoring hits on the human vessel's rear section. "Hull breach on Deck 12, Tactical Officer Ryan Cooper reported, sealing emergency bulkheads. Dr. Amy Foster was racing through the ship's corridors, tending to wounded crew members and helping with damage control. In one section, she found Security Chief Steve Carter working to repair a damaged power relay. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Bad enough," Carter replied, his hands covered in grease and coolant fluid. "But we're still in the fight." That was the human way, Foster thought. No matter how bad things got, they kept working and fighting. The aliens might have better technology and more ships, but they did not have the human spirit. The USS Defiance reached the edge of the asteroid field and plunged into the maze of floating rocks. Adams immediately began using the asteroids as cover, weaving the ship between them in a complex pattern. "Asteroid field entry successful," Adams reported, beginning evasive maneuvers. Commander Zektar hesitated as he watched the human ship disappear among the asteroids. The field was dense and dangerous. One wrong move could send his ship crashing into a rock the size of a mountain. But he could not let the humans escape. If they reached a human base and reported what had happened here, the hegemony would lose a major advantage. Everyone would know that humans were still alive and fighting. "Follow them in," Zektar ordered. "But be careful. These asteroids can crush a ship." The alien flagship entered the asteroid field more slowly than the Defiance. Zektar's crew was skilled, but they were not used to this kind of flying. They had to rely on their sensors and computers to navigate the dangerous field. Morrison smiled as he watched the alien ship fall further behind. "Adams, can you lose them in here?" "I can try, sir, but our engines are leaving a heat trail they can follow." That was when Communications Officer Danny Price had an idea. "Captain, what if we used the asteroids against them? Some of these rocks are pretty unstable." Morrison looked at the tactical display. Price was right. Several of the nearby asteroids showed signs of internal stress. A ship's weapons could easily shatter them into deadly fragments. "Garcia, can you target those unstable asteroids?" "Yes, sir. If I hit them just right, they'll break apart right in the alien's path." "Do it." The Defiance fired its remaining weapons at 3 large asteroids that hung in the alien ship's projected course. The rocks exploded into thousands of pieces, creating a deadly cloud of debris. Commander Zektar's pilot tried to avoid the sudden obstacle, but there was nowhere to go. Small rocks hammered against the ship's hull like bullets. Larger chunks punched holes through the armor. "We're taking heavy damage from debris impact," the tactical officer reported. "Hull breaches on multiple decks. Keep going," Zektar shouted. "We cannot lose them now." But the asteroid field was working against the aliens. "They're larger, less maneuverable ship kept hitting obstacles that the nimble Defiance could avoid. Each impact slowed them down and caused more damage. Adams was flying the human ship like it was a fighter instead of a heavy cruiser. She dove under asteroids, spiraled around them, and used every trick she knew to stay ahead of their pursuer. "I'm reading massive structural damage on the alien ship," Cooper reported. "They're having trouble keeping up." Morrison nodded. The plan was working, but they were not safe yet. The Defiance was also taking damage from flying debris, and their power systems were still failing. "How much longer can we keep this up?" Morrison asked Brooks. "Not long, sir. The power core is ready to shut down completely. We need to find a way to end this soon." Morrison studied the tactical display again. They were deep in the asteroid field now, surrounded by rocks and floating debris. The alien ship was falling behind, but it was still dangerous. Then he saw it. A massive asteroid, larger than their ship, was rotating slowly in their path. It was cracked and unstable, held together by its own weak gravity. If they could position it just right. "Adams, bring us around that big asteroid." "Garcia, prepare our last missile spread." "Sir," Garcia asked. "We're going to drop that rock on our friend back there," Morrison explained. "Think you can crack it open with our missiles?" Garcia studied the asteroid and grinned. "Oh yes, sir. I can definitely do that." The Defiance moved into position behind the huge asteroid. The alien ship was still following their heat trail, moving closer through the debris field. Commander Zektar had no idea what the humans were planning. "Target locked," Garcia reported, firing missiles. The last of the Defiance's missiles streaked toward the massive asteroid and detonated against its cracked surface. The ancient rock finally gave up its struggle against gravity and broke apart in slow motion. Millions of tons of stone began falling toward Commander Zektar's ship. Commander Zektar watched in horror as millions of tons of asteroid debris fell toward his ship. The human vessel had somehow turned the asteroid field itself into a weapon. His pilot tried desperately to avoid the falling rocks, but there were too many of them. "Evasive maneuvers," Zektar shouted. "All power to forward shields." The alien flagship's shields flared bright blue as the debris hammered against them. Small rocks bounced off harmlessly, but the larger chunks punched through the energy barrier like it was made of paper. The ship shuddered and groaned as its hull took a terrible beating. On the USS Defiance, Captain Morrison watched the alien ship struggle against the avalanche of stone, but he knew this would not be enough to finish them. The Hegemony flagship was badly damaged, but still fighting. "Status report," Morrison called out. "Enemy ship has lost main shields and taken heavy hull damage," Tactical Officer Ryan Cooper reported, "but they're still operational." Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks' voice came over the come from engineering. "Captain, we've got critical problems down here. The power core is about to shut down completely. I can give you maybe 3 more minutes of main power." 3 minutes. Morrison felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. His ship was dying around him. Most of his weapons were gone. The engines were failing. But he still had one card left to play. "Garcia, what's our ammunition status?" Weapons Officer Tony Garcia checked his systems. "We're completely out of missiles and railgun slugs, sir, but we still have the ship's self-destruct charges." Morrison nodded slowly. He had hoped it would not come to this, but sometimes a captain had to make the hardest choice of all. "All hands, this is the captain," Morrison announced over the ship's intercom. "Prepare for emergency evacuation. All non-essential personnel to the escape pods immediately." Throughout the ship, the crew began moving toward the escape pod bays. Dr. Amy Foster helped wounded crew members into the pods while Security Chief Steve Carter made sure everyone was accounted for. "Sir," Navigation Officer Kelly Adams said quietly, "I'm not leaving the bridge." "Neither am I," added Communications Officer Danny Price. Garcia looked up from his weapons console. Captain, if you're planning what I think you're planning, you'll need someone to handle the firing sequence. Morrison looked at his loyal crew. They had been through 3 months of hiding and a desperate battle. Now they were volunteering to stay for a suicide mission. This is not your fight anymore, Morrison said. Get to the escape pods. That's an order. With respect, sir, Adams replied. We've been dead for 3 months already. A few more minutes won't matter. Brooks appeared on the bridge, having left her post in engineering. The power core is set to critical overload, Captain. When it goes, it'll take half this asteroid field with it. Commander Zektar's ship had finally cleared the worst of the debris. The alien commander was furious. His beautiful flagship was a wreck. His entire squadron was destroyed, all because of one human ship that was supposed to be dead. Lock weapons on that human vessel, he ordered. I want them destroyed completely. No escape pods, no survivors, nothing. The alien ship began moving toward the Defiance for a final attack, but Morrison was ready for him. Adams, bring us about. Head straight for their ship. Sir, Adams asked. You heard me? Take us right at them. Full speed. The USS Defiance turned toward the alien flagship and accelerated. To Commander Zektar, it looked like the humans were making a desperate ramming attack. The alien commander smiled. Let them come. His ship was bigger and stronger. They're trying to ram us, Zektar's tactical officer reported. Should we move to avoid them? No, Zektar replied. Let them come. When they get close, we'll blast them apart. But Morrison had no intention of ramming the alien ship. As the Defiance accelerated toward its enemy, Price activated the ship's emergency beacon. The signal would be picked up by any human vessels within 50 light years, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies, Price reported. The message is going out now. The message was simple but powerful. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance. We have engaged and destroyed a hegemony squadron in the Theta sector. Humanity lives. Humanity fights. Humanity will never surrender. As the two ships closed the distance between them, Morrison prepared for his final gambit. The escape pods had already launched, carrying most of his crew to safety. Only 5 crew members remained on the bridge: Morrison, Adams, Garcia, Price, and Brooks. Range 2 target, 2 kilometers and closing, Adams reported. Commander Zektar was getting nervous. The human ship was coming very fast and showed no signs of turning away. Fire all weapons. Destroy them before they reach us. The alien ship's remaining guns opened fire on the Defiance. Energy beams struck the human vessel's hull, tearing through armor and setting fires throughout the ship. But the Defiance kept coming. Hull breaches on all decks, Cooper would have reported if he had still been there. But he was safely away in an escape pod, along with the other survivors. 1 kilometer and closing, Adams said calmly. They're still firing at us. Morrison waited until the last possible moment. When the ships were only 500 meters apart, he gave the final order. Now, Garcia. Do it now. Garcia pressed the button that activated the ship's self-destruct system. But this was not a normal self-destruct. Brooks had rigged the power core to overload in a specific way. Instead of simply exploding, the USS Defiance would become a miniature star for just a few seconds. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The overloaded power core released all its energy at once, creating a blast that vaporized both ships instantly. The shockwave shattered asteroids for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. When the light faded, there was nothing left but expanding clouds of hot gas and metal debris. Commander Zektar's flagship was gone. The USS Defiance was gone. The battle was over, but Morrison's final gambit had worked perfectly. The explosion and debris field masked the escape of the human crew pods. Commander Zektar had been so focused on destroying the Defiance that he never noticed the small craft fleeing the battle. 3 days later, the escape pods were picked up by a human rescue ship. The 12 survivors of the USS Defiance were taken to a hidden base in the Centauri system, where the Earth resistance was planning their next moves against the hegemony. When they heard the story of the Defiance's last battle, the resistance leaders were amazed. One human ship had destroyed an entire alien squadron. Better yet, the ship's final message had been received by dozens of human outposts throughout the galaxy. The news spread quickly through the resistance network. Humanity was not defeated. Human ships were still fighting. The war was far from over. Captain Jake Morrison and his 4 brave crew members had died in the explosion. But their sacrifice had accomplished something incredible. They had shown the galaxy that humans do not give up easily. They had proven that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you think is already dead. The USS Defiance became a legend among both humans and aliens. For humans, it was a symbol of hope and determination. For the hegemony, it was a warning that this war would be much harder than they had expected. In the years that followed, many other human ships would use the same tactic. They would play dead, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The aliens learned to be very careful around any human wreck they found drifting in space, because sometimes the dead can still bite back. And in the cold depths of space, where the USS Defiance had made its final stand, the debris still glowed faintly with residual energy. It was a monument to human courage and a reminder that freedom is never free. The war between humanity and the hegemony would continue for many more years. But the Battle of the Theta Sector marked the beginning of the end for alien dreams of easy conquest. They had learned, at terrible cost, that humans are most dangerous when they appear to be defeated.